My sister set me up by telling our parents that I was doing things I wasn't. They kicked me out of the house. When I was having my wedding, my father messaged me and wrote, "My name is Emma. If you told me a year ago that my own family would turn their backs on me, I would have laughed." But that's exactly what happened, and it all started with my half-sister Leah. Leah has always had a knack for drama, but I never imagined she'd destroy my life with one of her lies. Leah was the type who needed to be the center of attention all the time. Growing up, I tried to be a good big sister, even though we were never really close. Our dad remarried when I was 10, and Leah was born a few years later. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. My dad and stepmother Margaret adored her, and she knew how to use that to her advantage. Leah knew she could manipulate people, but I didn't realize how far she'd take it. It started subtly at first. Leah would make small comments to Dad and Margaret about me, like, "Emma's acting weird lately," or "Emma's been staying out late. I'm worried about her." At first, they didn't think much of it. I was 24, living on my own, trying to figure out my life after college. But Leah kept planting seeds of doubt, and I didn't even notice it until it was too late. One day, I got a call from Dad. His voice was tense, and I could feel something was off. "Emma, we need to talk," he said. "Can you come over?" I went to their house, not knowing that my whole world was about to crash down. When I walked into the living room, Margaret was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, looking like she had already made up her mind about me. Leah was there too, looking way too innocent for someone who had just turned my family against me. Dad didn't waste any time. "Leah told us something, and I need you to be honest with us. Are you on drugs?" I laughed because it was so absurd. "What? No, of course not. Where is this coming from?" Margaret's eyes narrowed. Leah said, "I found some pills in your room when you stayed over last weekend." I froze. Leah hadn't been in my room, or so I thought. I never left anything suspicious there. That's not true. I don't know what she's talking about. But Leah, with her wide eyes and fake concern, piped in, "I didn't want to say anything, but I've been really worried about you, Emma. You've been acting so strange, and I thought maybe you needed help." I stared at her, my mouth open in disbelief. "You're lying. I've never done drugs in my life." But it didn't matter what I said. Leah had already planted the lie deep in their minds. Dad and Margaret exchanged looks, and I knew they believed her over me. It didn't matter that I had never given them any reason to doubt me before. "That's not all." Margaret added, "Leah also mentioned you've been involved with questionable people, Emma. Are you selling yourself?" I felt like I'd been slapped. My own stepmother, someone who had raised me for years, was accusing me of being a prostitute, and all because of something Leah said. I couldn't believe it. "No, I can't believe you're even asking me that. Leah is lying." But again, my words didn't seem to matter. Leah had woven her web, and they were caught in it. "Emma," Dad said, his voice softer now, like he wanted to believe me but couldn't. "We just want to help you if you're in trouble. We need to know." "I'm not in trouble," I yelled, tears welling up in my eyes. "Leah is lying to you." Leah, still playing the innocent victim, looked at me with wide eyes. "Emma, I'm just trying to help you. I don't want you to end up like some of my friends who got mixed up in bad things." I couldn't stand to look at her. "You're doing this on purpose," I spat. "You want them to hate me." Margaret stood up. "That's enough, Emma. Until you can be honest with us, we can't trust you. We love you, but we need to take a step back." That was their way of saying they didn't want me around anymore. I left the house that day, feeling numb. My own family, the people who were supposed to have my back, had turned against me because of Leah's lies. I didn't know what to do. I tried calling my mom, but she lived across the country, and while she believed me, there wasn't much she could do from so far away. The worst part was that Leah kept escalating her lies. She started telling people in town that I was a drug addict, and soon the rumors spread. I lost my job because my boss heard the gossip and didn't want someone unreliable working for him. Friends stopped calling, and I became more isolated than ever. Leah's lies took everything from me: my family, my job, my reputation. I was spiraling, and she was thriving on the attention. Every time I tried to confront her, she'd twist things around, making me look like the unstable one. The final straw came when Dad called me again. This time, to tell me that they didn't want me coming around anymore. "Emma, until you can get help, it's best if you stay away. We can't have you around Leah. She's been through enough." Been through enough? I was the one who had lost everything, and yet Leah was the victim in their eyes. I was done. I packed up my things and moved to a new city, hoping to start over. But the damage had been done. My relationship with my family was shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. Months went by, and every time I thought about reaching out to them, I remembered the way they looked at me that day, like I was a stranger, not their daughter. I couldn't forgive them for that, and I definitely couldn't forgive Leah. But as time passed, I began to wonder if there was more to Leah's behavior. What kind of person lies like that, completely destroying someone's life? Was it just jealousy, or was there something deeper going on with her? Not that it mattered anymore. I had to move on with my life, with or without them. It's been a year since everything fell apart, and while I've managed to rebuild some of what I lost, the pain of losing my family still lingers. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust them again, or if they'll ever see through Leah's lies. But one thing's for sure, if they ever want me back in their lives, they'll have to face the truth about who Leah really is. I'm not holding my breath. After the confrontation with my family, things only got worse. I tried to move on, but it wasn't that simple. The betrayal was a wound that festered, growing deeper with each passing day. Leah's lies had infected my life, and I couldn't escape the consequences. It wasn't just the loss of my job or friends. It was the loss of my identity. Everything I thought I knew about myself was questioned, and it all led back to my father kicking me out of the house, the ultimate betrayal. The day it happened is still crystal clear in my memory. I had gone back to my father's house, desperate to make him see reason. Maybe if I explained everything calmly, face to face, he'd understand. I wanted to believe that somewhere inside him, the dad who raised me was still there. The dad who used to cheer for me at soccer games, who taught me how to ride a bike, who always said family comes first. I wanted that version of my father back. But when I walked through the door, I immediately felt the tension in the air. Margaret was sitting in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at me like I was something rotten that needed to be taken out. Leah, of course, was nowhere to be seen, but I knew she was around, probably listening from the shadows, waiting for things to fall apart like she always wanted. My father stood by the kitchen counter, his face stern, like he'd already made up his mind before I even spoke a word. "Dad, we need to talk," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "You have to hear my side of this." He didn't respond right away, and that silence was suffocating. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, pounding louder with each second that passed. Finally, he sighed. "I don't know if there's anything left to say, Emma. We've given you time. We've tried to help you. You haven't helped me," I shot back, my voice shaking now. "You've only listened to Leah. Everything she's told you is a lie, and I can prove it. Please just listen to me." Margaret shook her head, and I could feel her judgment piercing through me. "Emma, we heard enough. Leah's been nothing but concerned for you, and you've done nothing to show us that she's wrong." The frustration boiled up inside me, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. Leah is lying because she's jealous. She's always wanted attention, and this is how she gets it. Don't you see? She's manipulating you. But my words fell on deaf ears. My father's expression didn't change. He wasn't even considering my side of the story. "Emma," he said, his voice low but firm, "this isn't healthy for you or for Leah. I think it's best if you don't come around anymore. At least until you get help." "Get help?" I repeated, incredulous. "You think I'm the one who needs help? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not on drugs. I'm not selling myself. Leah made it all up, and you're throwing me out because of her lies." My father's gaze hardened. "We can't have this negativity in the house anymore. I'm sorry, but I need you to leave." Margaret nodded in agreement, her lips pressed into a thin line. "It's for the best." I stood there stunned. This was it. They were choosing Leah's lies over me, their own daughter. I felt like I was being erased. Like everything I'd ever done for them, every moment of love, every shared memory was being wiped away in an instant. I looked at my father one last time, hoping for some flicker of doubt, some sign that he might reconsider. But there was nothing. He was lost to me. I turned and left without another word, tears stinging my eyes as I slammed the door behind me. The sound echoed in my head, a final cruel punctuation to the life I once knew. The first few months after being kicked out were a blur of despair. I moved in with a friend, Jessica, who was kind enough to let me crash on her couch while I tried to get my life back together. But no matter how hard I tried to distract myself, I couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment. Every time I passed a family in the park or heard someone mention their parents, a sharp pain shot through my chest. I couldn't stop thinking about Leah and how she had turned everyone I loved against me. Jessica tried to be supportive, but I could tell she didn't fully understand what I was going through. "Maybe you should just reach out to them again," she suggested one evening while we sat on her tiny balcony. "Maybe they've cooled down by now." "You could," I interrupted, my voice bitter. "They don't want me. They made that very clear." She looked at me sympathetically, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I knew she wanted to help, but unless you've been through it, you can't really understand what it's like to have your family turn on you, to be betrayed by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. I spent the next few years trying to rebuild my life, but it wasn't easy. The rumors Leah spread had followed me even in the new city. Whispers about me lingered. I applied for jobs, but each rejection felt like another nail in the coffin of the person I used to be. People looked at me differently, like I was damaged, untrustworthy. Then, about 2 years after I'd been kicked out, something unexpected happened. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was working at a small cafe. I had finally found a steady job as a barista, and while it wasn't my dream career, it paid the bills. I was wiping down the counter when a man walked in. He looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. "Emma?" he asked, hesitating. I turned to him, curious. "Yeah." He smiled awkwardly. "You probably don't remember me. I'm Dylan, Leah's ex." My stomach dropped at the mention of Leah's name. Dylan? Oh God. I remembered him now. He had dated Leah for a few years back when we were younger. They broke up right around the time Leah started spreading those rumors about me. What the hell was he doing here? I forced a polite smile, even though all I wanted to do was turn and walk away. "Oh yeah, Dylan, what's up?" He shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I know this is weird, but I've been meaning to talk to you for a while. I wasn't sure if I should, but after everything that's happened, I just need to clear my conscience." I raised an eyebrow. "Clear your conscience?" He sighed, looking genuinely remorseful. "It's about Leah and the things she said about you, the drugs, the prostitution. It was all a lie." My breath caught in my throat. Hearing someone else say it, someone who knew Leah well, made it all the more real. "I know that," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "But my family doesn't." Dylan nodded, looking down at the floor. "I know, and I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner, but I didn't realize how far she would take it. She had her issues. She was always jealous of you, Emma. I think that's why she did it." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "Jealous of what, Dylan?" He said simply, "You were older, more independent, had your own life. Leah always felt like she was living in your shadow, even if you didn't notice. She craved attention, and when she realized she could get it by making you look bad, well, she ran with it. I didn't know the full extent of it at the time, but she admitted it to me after we broke up. She felt guilty, but she didn't know how to stop." My head was spinning. Leah had admitted it. She had actually confessed to making everything up, and Dylan had known this whole time. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded, anger bubbling up inside me. "You could have stopped this. My family could have known the truth years ago." "I'm sorry," Dylan said again, his voice small. "I didn't know how. I didn't think they'd believe me. And Leah, she has a way of making people doubt themselves. She messed with my head too." I shook my head, barely able to believe what I was hearing. After everything, after all the pain and heartache Leah had caused, it all boiled down to jealousy. That's why my father had kicked me out. That's why I had lost my family, my job, my entire life. Dylan stood there waiting for me to say something, but I didn't have the words. I couldn't even look at him anymore. All I felt was rage. "You should go," I muttered, turning away from him. "Emma, I'm really sorry," he said one last time before quietly leaving the cafe. I stood there gripping the counter, trying to steady myself as the weight of everything crashed down on me. Leah's lies had destroyed my life, and all because she was jealous. And now, years later, I finally had the truth. But what good was it now? After that day, I couldn't stop thinking about confronting Leah. The rage I felt was like nothing I had ever experienced before. It consumed me, keeping me awake at night, replaying every moment of betrayal. I wanted answers. I wanted her to admit what she had done, not just to me but to our father, to everyone. Years had passed since Dylan had confessed Leah's lies to me. At first, I thought hearing the truth would offer some kind of closure, but all it did was reopen old wounds. I had built my life without my family, without their support, without their love. And I didn't need their apologies, especially not now. I was in a good place for the first time in a long while. I had a new job I loved, working in marketing for a nonprofit. And more importantly, I had found someone who accepted me for who I was, without the baggage of my past. Noah and I had met 2 years ago through mutual friends, and from the moment we started talking, everything felt easy. He didn't pry into my family life. He didn't judge me for the broken relationships. He just saw me, Emma, the person I had become despite everything. When Noah proposed, I felt like my life was finally coming together again. We were planning a small wedding, nothing extravagant. I didn't need a big celebration. What mattered was starting our new life together, building a family that wasn't poisoned by lies and betrayal. But of course, life wasn't that simple. I hadn't spoken to my father or Margaret in years after they kicked me out. I cut all ties. I moved cities, changed my phone number, and blocked them on social media. Every now and then, I'd hear through the grapevine that they were asking about me, but I never responded. Even after Dylan's confession, I didn't reach out. What would I say? That they believed a lie over me, their own daughter, and that I had to suffer because of their blind trust in Leah? I couldn't forgive them for that. Then one day, about 6 months into our wedding planning, I got an unexpected email. It was from my father. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening it. My heart pounded in my chest as I read his words. Emma, I've thought about you every day since you left. I know we made a terrible mistake believing Leah over you, and I can't tell you how sorry I am for everything that's happened. Margaret and I miss you more than